Good evening, everybody, and welcome back to this week's edition of the Pretenders or Contenders Coaches Show. I'm your host, Coach Devon Powell, here for varsity football coach at Law High School and assistant basketball coach at Law High School. The show with me tonight, I got my co-host, Midnight Rider. What's going on, man?
What's going on, man?
Not
I get to do 6 shows this week, I think.
Only 6, yeah. We got our other co-host, Coach Mitchell, special teams coach at Riverdale Baptist High School. What's going on, Coach?
Nothing much. I didn't do 6 shows this week, but yeah, I'm doing all right.
I told him he's the hardest working man in podcast land. I ain't even gonna get. He'll tell you how many shows he do at the end of the night. And then we got our special guest joining us again for the second week in a row to continue our conversation on recruiting in college football these days. We got Coach Nicholas Gould from Howard University football. What's going on, Coach?
Man, blessed and highly favored, my guy. Glad to be back.
I appreciate you, man, taking time to come back, man. I know y'all it's busy for you guys this time of year because you still got recruiting going on and getting prepared for spring ball. So I appreciate you taking the time to speak to these young people and these parents out here that, a lot of them just don't have a clue about the recruiting world. So
yeah, and that's why I'm here. That's why I'm here.
All right, but we're gonna go ahead and get rolling. Like I said, the boss assured me that I ain't on no schedule tonight, so take all the time we need. Everybody out there listening, if you got questions, drop them in the comments. We'll try to get Coach to answer as many as he can before the night is over with. So, like I said, we're gonna get straight into it. We touched on this last week, but Coach, just refresh everybody. What is recruiting?
Yeah, recruiting is just that relationship built process that we go through as college coaches, where we try to find the best player who's a student athlete for our university. So most college coaches are going to seek out a certain type of player that can survive at their university, that can be sustainable at the university, but also that could be a great student and athlete at the same time that represents the brand of their university very, very well. So when you look at character, like I had a conversation last week with somebody. Yeah, somebody said, my son has great character. I'm like, yeah. In terms of character, that's not what we mean when we say character. In terms of character, we always say the character of our program. Does our program reflect through this student athlete? And sometimes that's not a fit, and we have to find that through the recruiting process. And that's why I say it's a relationship-based process where I have to make sure that we're a fit for your child and your child is a fit for us. And sometimes that includes the family as well, but that process is a long, drawn-out process where it's not just a, hey, coach, signing day's in 2 days. Can you take my kid? No, that's not what that process is. Usually that process starts freshman and sophomore year. It can start at the end of the junior year as well for some of the late bloomers or guys who got out there late. But for the most part, it's a long, drawn-out process where we want to ensure that this student athlete is going to be able to survive at our university for 4 to 5 years and want to be able to come back for 40 years. I know times are changing, but that's still the goal for everybody's university.
A quick question, Coach Gould, because you mentioned parents and the kids in your recruiting process. How important is it for when you're recruiting? How important of a role does the parents play in your recruiting process?
Oh, they're sometimes it's more than the recruit. I've had fathers, I've had mothers, I've had grandparents mess it up for kids just because their needs were bigger than what the kids were. And their opinions kind of messed up the kid in the process of choosing the right school for that child instead of letting the child make that decision. And so at times, the talent of that kid can outweigh some of the parents' influence. Like, I had a father call me almost every week talking about how their child wasn't getting the ball enough. And I wasn't irritated by it, but I know with some college coaches, they do not want to build relationship with parents of college students just because this student athlete is not a child. They need to be able to make decisions on their own. And sometimes when the parents are that heavily involved through the process, they're also going to be that heavily involved and heavily influencing that student athlete while they're in your program. So we recruit parents as well. We pay attention to that factor because it's important. Like if you have a child who relies heavily on their parent for everything, washing clothes, dropping them off, things of that nature, how can that help them make a decision on 3rd and 1? You know what I mean? They need to be told what to do and how to do it versus being able to think for themselves sometimes. And it's kind of crazy. It changed me as a parent. I got a 13-year-old and a 10-year-old. It's totally, being a college coach has changed me as a parent where I won't let me help my kids the way I see kids being helped. Like, my kids won't even have they don't have cell phones. We not talking that nonsense. If you got a cell phone, you're going to pay the bill. You're going to find a way. And it's like some of the horror stories I've seen with some of these student athletes. It's like your parents are doing too much for you. And since they're doing too much for you, you can't really think for yourself, process for yourself, or anything like that. So sometimes we got to shy away from the parents a little bit just because sometimes it's just too much.
Thanks for that.
All right, Midnight, you got a question?
How do you and this might be something you covered last week, but in the recruiting process, we already talked about the parents. What about the school itself? How does that affect the recruiting process?
What do you mean?
So say my kid's at Laurel and he's playing for coach. Like, does coach have an influence on you picking a kid or shying away from a kid?
So that one's even more trickier because, yes, that does have an impact, but it's less of an impact than you might think, just because I might know in the back of my head that coach really don't want that student athlete to come to my school, let alone come to a HBCU. And so we kind of fight two battles all at once, where coach might be a championship level coach and he might think the world of his student athlete, and he might think his student is bigger than Howard University. And at times I have to continue to recruit that kid, continue to be nice to that coach, continue to be respectful to the process, even though I know that coach does not have my back or support. And I gotta be what, God created me to be, instead of being what, my upbringing allowed me to be. But it's a harder process. And like, me and my boys had these conversations all the time. It's just like, if you can recruit at Howard, you can recruit anywhere, just because the hurdles and the bumps and the humps and the jumps that you got to make to just coach. And Howard is hated. Like, I'm from here and I didn't want to go to Howard coming out because of the prestige and the name Howard had at the time. But like last night in the Super Bowl, one of the refs was a Howard alum. You know what I mean? And so everywhere you go, you're going to see Howard's name, rightfully so, because it was one of the first schools. But that high school coach plays a major part. I try to build really good relationships with good folks and try to be good to them, so that hurdle was a little bit shorter. But there are some schools out here that are perennial winners who, we gotta bring some roses and some donuts and some coffee and sometimes some chew to make sure we can get in the door. Like, I remember it was one year, it was in 2022. It's an out-of-state school. I wasn't in charge of the area at the time. I am now. But at that time, our former defensive coordinator and former DB coach went to that school for 3 straight years and sat in the lobby for 3 straight years and did not get a chance to see the head coach because that school thought Howard was beneath them.
Wow.
But at
That's
the same
unfortunate.
time, I love those type of situations. I love those type of schools because I'm also the type of person where you're gonna have to see me. Like, you're gonna have to tell me face to face, no, I don't want to see you, coach, because I'm coming back. I went to Louisiana last year. Edna Carr, the famous Edna Carr. I had a flight 2 hours before I finally got to get into the school. And I told the coach, I said, yeah, I wasn't leaving without seeing one of y'all. I didn't care who the coach was. I know who the coach is and I respect them. And I believe in everything they do down there. I love everything they do. But one of those coaches was going to have to sit down and talk to me before I left. And it's just that type of standard you have to have, because at the end of the day, I don't take none of this personal. Like not if a recruit tells me no, if a coach tells me no, again, what's the worst thing they're gonna say is no? Cool, I can live with that. Like, I grew up in a different era. So you telling me no today isn't gonna be a no next week. It isn't gonna be a no next month. And if it is, you're gonna have to tell me next week and next month it's a no. But I'm gonna make sure you tell me no.
Right. Real quick before we move on to the next one, we're gonna take a quick break. For our audio version, we got to take these breaks in these little short commercial breaks. So we'll take a little quick short break for a second, then we'll be right back. I appreciate that. So just let you know, we got to do those for the audio version. You know, we stepping up the game over here at the Sideline Junkies Podcast Network.
Man, I love it.
All right, so we're gonna move on to the next topic, Coach. So, what is a college coach looking for?
We kind of touched on it a little bit, but a college coach is really looking for a couple things. One of them is just the right character for your program. So I tell all kids and parents, find out what that program believes in. Find out what those program standards are. Find out what those program pillars are. If the parents can't find it out, that high school coach can find out what that program believes in and what that program stands for. And then see if you fall in line with that. Like, I know Mike London in 2017 had a program standard of showing up, showing the class, going to class, showing class, and treating people with dignity and respect. And so if you fall in the line of being a rebel, like kind of I was as a player, where I did go to class, but at times, I wasn't trying to go. And if you're not consistent in that, you don't fit the model of that program. And so that's one thing from the character standpoint. And then the next thing, which is the most important piece, is your play on the field. Can you play football? It's not about size. It's not about height. It's not about weight. It's, can you play football? If you can play football, you're going to be a high caliber recruit for that school. The next phase is just your size. Like, I was a defensive lineman in high school. And so a linebacker coach at the college level, where I was going to go play linebacker, and I did at Bowie State, they weren't watching some D-line tape saying, oh, this is an excellent linebacker, right? So, again, you got to understand where you are and what you're going to receive and what you're going to accept based on the position you played in high school. It's not a knock on the high school player. It's not a knock on the high school coach. That's just what you fit for that program, that high school program, and you have to do your best to make sure you're training and developing for where you want to go. So my high school coach tried to put me in situations at that time where I was going to be able to play in space. I was going to be able to play linebacker, and I could show my athletic ability. But I was also a heavy-set kid at the time where I was on the D-line. And then it's just from there, it's just about academics. It's about, what type of school it is. Like I said the last time, if you go to a liberal arts school, like, what type of majors are you interested in? What are you going to major in? Do you want to be an engineering major? If your grades are a 2.3, you're not going to be an engineering major. Like, it's just not going to happen. So it's always about what's the fit for that program based on that school. Like, I know I was recruiting this one kid out of Delaware a few years ago. He wanted to be a poli-sci major. Well, his dream school was Duke University. He ended up being offered by Duke University, even though Howard has a great poli-sci program. political science, has a great political science program. He viewed Duke University's program was higher than ours. And so he fit everything that we wanted in a student athlete. He had the size, he had the measurables, he had the athletic ability, he had the grades, he had a 3.6 GPA, he had the character that we were looking for, but he was also looking for his dream school. And when his dream school showed up, he said yes to it. It just so happens he was 6'5", 250 pounds in the 11th grade in high school, and he had that opportunity. A lot of kids don't have the opportunity, but first things first is always about, do you fit the character of that program? Do you fit the football player of that program? Because that's the other thing. I tell people, go look at the roster. Do they have anybody on their roster your size? So it was a receiver I was helping when I was at Oxon High School in 2019. He wanted to go to Ohio State, Michigan, Florida State. I say, yo, bro, you are a 5'9" receiver who runs a 4.6 40, and you're 205 pounds. Is there another receiver on that roster that plays that fits your style of play? If it's not, then that's not the school for you. And I try to be as real with people as possible, because I'd rather be upfront with you than lie to you through the process and then get your hopes up at the end thinking you're not a good football player. No, you're a good football player. You just might not be a fit for that program. And that's the most important piece. So people always have to ask, what is the coach looking for? What is the coach looking for in a prospect and a recruit early on in the process, so that they can kind of know, so they can narrow down the type of schools they want to start to invest their time to go see it, go be around. Otherwise, you're going to waste a lot of time.
Right.
Coach Mitch?
You talk about dream schools and so forth. What is your advice to high school student athletes who may have an offer to this one school or another, but they're waiting on another school to come in, so they're not committing to these other offers, right? And then at the end of the day, your dream school doesn't come in, and the other offers that you had on the table is now gone because I'm not sitting around waiting for you. And now you're out of luck because there's no options for you. So now you just you just sat there waiting for the dream school, and now you have nothing. What's your advice to high school athletes that should they sit around, or should they not, or should they, take on what they have?
Fall in love, or who fall in love with you. And I related a lot to, because I recruit mostly boys, I related a lot to girls. Don't keep chasing that one girl that don't want you. She want to use you for your money. She want to use you for your phone, your car, the status that you come with, and you don't have a shot in the dark. So I always tell people, if you're a D1 athlete, you have D1 offers. Not saying you can't play at that level, just you don't have that interest right now. And so I always tell people, don't dismiss anything. If somebody wants to talk to you from any level, whether it's a prep school, a JUCO, NAIA, FCS, D2, talk to them and entertain it, just because you never know. One, you never know where you're going to be. Two, you never know where that coach is going to be, because that coach that's recruiting you and talking to you could end up at your dream school. It was a kid from St. John's a few years ago, played center. We recruited him at Howard. His father didn't want him in the city no more, so he took him to another school in Ohio. Our head coach leaves and go to Auburn. He's now at Auburn. So you just never know where those relationships are going to end you up at, and you just can't turn your nose down to a program just because it's not the level that you want to be at. If it's not at the level that you want to be at, those opportunities are going to come quick and fast, and you won't have a choice. We had one of our DBs we signed 2 years ago came to us because he waited. Now, he's an All-American style player, and he will not be at Howard for long. I can promise you that. Out of high school, he was a really good player, local kid, straight out of D.C., played at McNamara. He will not be at Howard for long. You will hear his name, Ben Chandler, if you don't already know it. But he waited in the process for the right fit, the right feeling, and I just never left. Like I said, you're going to have to tell me no. And if you don't tell me no, I'm still going to be here. And if you need a place to go to, I'm going to be here. But again, I always tell people, you never know where somebody's going to end up. So you have to treat somebody right. You have to treat somebody in a respectful way, because you You don't know. They might end up at your dream school if you do well for them, play well for them, treat that relationship right. You might end up being able to go with them when they travel to that next location. And so, I mean, D2, like last night in the game, it was a kid, Christian. I can't remember Christian. I think it was Christian Hayes. Played at Bowie High School. He played in the Super Bowl last night. I recruited him when he was at Bowie High School. I remember him. Now he went to ODU coming out, but then he transferred to another school where he had a relationship with that coach after he graduated from ODU. So it's several stories like that where, hey, fall in love with who falls in love with you. If there's a lot of D2 interests and D2 offers, man, be excited and celebrate those D2 interests and D2 offers, because I guarantee you there's 500,000 kids that aren't getting any interest at the D2 level, and all they're getting is D3s or JUCOs. And so somebody's situation is always better than yours, but it's somebody's situation that's always worse than yours. And so you got to take it for what it is, appreciate what you have, and, you know, just celebrate the good moments.
For sure.
Midnight.
As a college coach, how do you handle the kid that's late to the party? You know, the kid that either just managed to get himself eligible, you know, or the kid that just finally grew?
Keep them relationships going. Like I said before, like, you know, a good football player when you see one. And it's like Noah Chambers. I don't know if you guys remember Noah. He's at Virginia Tech now. I met him 3 years ago when he was at Paint Branch High School. He was a 5'10" linebacker. Then I see him at DeMatha one year. He's 6'1". Then I see him at DeMatha the next year. He's 6'3". And so he was one of those kids where, in my opinion, he was a late bloomer. He already had freakishly long arms. So I just knew if he grew, like, he had a chance to be something special and be somewhere. So you always keep those kids in mind. You always keep track of those kids. You kind of have to, if you really want to be good in this recruiting game, in this recruiting landscape. You just keep track of them. I have Excel spreadsheets. I have a database where I can keep track of kids that I've contacted, that I've built relationships with. And then in my phone, I got a virtual app where I get the kids to scan the QR code to just follow me, and we text back and forth, and I just keep track. And I always make sure it's a right person, right fit. The hard part is we just don't have enough spots for most of those kids. So in that event, I always tell my guys that, you know, that I built relationships with over the time at different schools, from Fordham to Chicago State to LIU. Hey, if I find a guy for you and I can't take him, at least I can put him on to you so you can know about who they are and put them on. Like, I had one cousin playing for Morgan State. I got another cousin right now, his little brother, playing for Lafayette. I knew the coaches at Lafayette. I said, hey, take care of my cousin while he up there for his OV. And they was like, who's your cousin? I was like, I said the name. And they was like, I didn't know y'all was related. I was like, yeah, just take care of him. Just look out for him and his moms and his pops. And it's just those relationships. So those relationships are with the kids and the families, but they're also with other college coaches as well, because at the end of the day, I just want to see these kids be successful and go somewhere. So it's part of our job, and I take it to heart to make sure I follow those kids and pay attention to those kids. Like, there was a kid out of Mount Zion a few years ago, DB. We was his first offer doing backflips and twirls after interceptions. He go to St. Francis one semester. Now he's committed to Penn State and signed with Penn State. And so it's situations like that where it's my job to find the diamonds in the rough. It's my job to find the late bloomers, because you never know what they're going to turn into. You never know who they're going to be. And if they can be somebody special, you want them. The kid I told you guys last time, Jaquavion Smith, a.k.a. Fats, he's at Arkansas now. He was a late bloomer. Like, he came to us. He may have been 5'11", 6 feet tall, 205 pounds. After one full year, he was 6'1", 227. And so he already had the athletic ability. He already had the long arms and the attributes you wanted to see. But you just knew if he grew, he could be a difference maker, and he was. And that's why he ended up at Arkansas this past semester, or starting this January. So those late bloomers, especially at FCS school like us, we have to find them. We got to do our due diligence to be able to figure out who they are and what they're about. And we got to hold off for those late bloomers just because when we get them, our team is impacted by it tremendously, and we can have a successful year. Because, again, I don't care what nobody tell you. Yeah, you can draw up a play all you want to. One of my young boys, Nemo Washington at Delaware State, you can draw up all the X's and O's you want to, but ask him. It's Jimmy's over Joe's always. Like, he had some guys last year, and he was successful enough to be able to help that head coach go winning 8 games at Delaware State. So you can draw up all the X's and O's you want to, defensively, blitzes, coverages. But at the end of the day, if I got better players than you do, I increase my chances to win.
For sure.
Mm-hmm. Before we move on to the next topic, I want to touch on something you just mentioned when you was talking about the limited number of spots you have on the roster. And I know, was it last year or the year before, the NCAA put in a rule that reduced the number of players you can have on the roster. I think it went down to like 95 or something like that.
105. Yeah.
105. So just touch on that a bit and help people understand that, you know, that took away from, you know, potentially a spot for you.
Well, that one's iffy, right? So for an FCS program like Howard, we always have around 95 to 105 players. The problem is, and the disparity is, we still only have 63 scholarships. And so even though it's 105 max for Division I, that's for scholarship level players. So we can't afford more than 63 scholarships because we're at a private school. Some schools can go up to 66. Some schools could go up to 68. But because of how our tuition is ran at $69,000 almost, we can't really afford to go to that 85 or that 105 number from a scholarship standpoint. If we do, you're talking about you're splitting a $69,000 scholarship. That's still $40,000 almost. You know what I mean? And so for those FBS level schools where they was having 140, 145 players in those programs, that's where it got affected the most, where it reduced their number drastically to the point where now, and again, it should have happened a long time ago. You're talking about you got 85 scholarships and you got 60 guys who were walk-ons, got to figure out how they're going to pay for food, how they're going to pay for their room, how they're going to pay for school, and got to go to practice and find a way to get on a bus. That's a lot. So what they did was they reduced it and said everybody in your program has to be on athletic aid, whether that's through NIL or whether that's through a scholarship. You have to pay these players so that they can be provided for school so that they won't have to struggle like they've had in the past. And so I remember every summer we was getting jobs. Every winter we was getting jobs because we needed money in our pocket to be able to eat, to maintain our weight, or we need to be able to, you know, put gas in our car to be able to drive back and forth from the room or the apartment to the school and things of that nature. And so they kind of helped everybody out when it came down to that number, because now every player of that 105 at the FBS level is on some aid so that they can have their school funded for. But for us, we're still capped at, you know, around that 63 mark.
Okay. All right. Before we get into the next topic, we're going to take another quick break. All right. Appreciate everybody sticking around with us. We're going to move on to our next topic. All right, this one, Coach, is why would a coach choose a high school player over a portal guy?
This one is very near and dear to to my university. So for us specifically, we will always try to choose a high school player over a portal guy, just because the backbone of our recruiting, the backbone of who we are, the backbone of our foundation is building men up and teaching young men how to be grown men. And so when you look at the history of Howard University, the Chadwick Bosemans, right? You see all of these guys who come on campus. The I don't want to say his name, so I'm gonna choose somebody else. He don't have a good track record right now. But the Nick Cannons who've been on campus, the Anthony Filliards and the Greg McGee's, the Ted Whites, and you know what I mean, the Pep Hamiltons, these type of players who've come around the campus to start their career as a freshman coming out of high school to grow and mature to be the men they are today is because they went through that process of what Howard is, right? And so for us, we'll always have majority of our players be the foundation coming from high school because that's just the rich tradition of what Howard has always been and what Howard will always be. We're trying to raise young men into grown men to build a legacy. And so in order to build a legacy, you can't do that out of the portal because a portal kid isn't going to appreciate that legacy like a high school kid would just because of everything we did to kind of help build you through that process. For us, a portal guy will always be used as a one-off option to kind of fill a hole, fill a gap, or give us some experience to kind of help in the process. But we're a developmental school in the sense of we're here to build football players and athletes. And that's point blank period. We're here. Your first 2 years in our university, we're going to develop you as a man. We're going to develop you as a player. We're going to develop you as a person. We're going to put you in the community, do community service. There's so many things that we're going to be able to do for you and have to build you up. And that's kind of what we get a kick out of just getting hands-on. Like I got a transfer linebacker in for one semester, 1 year. He'll be done after the fall season. And I got a room full of freshman linebackers. And he looked at them and said, Coach, they 18, 19? I said, yeah. They know this defense like this already? I said, yeah. How? And I just explained him the process that we went through. And I say, I'm one of the hardest working coaches in America. Like, I don't know what sleep is. I don't know what rest is. I'm at home on a podcast right now. I was probably just sitting with my youngest son talking about football and this is just what I do. This is just natural. And so with those kids, they're so hungry about the game of football, the game of life they want to be around. Like on my way home to take my kids to go get a haircut, they were still at the school running a meeting. And they was on that meeting from 4 o'clock to 5:30. And so it's just something they love to do and something they do. And that's just what I always want to invest in. 9 times out of 10 with a portal kid, you're not going to have that relationship. You're not going to have that spark. You're not going to have that drive from a guy unless they on their last leg or they going out, I got to prove something, And then when you talking about those bigger levels, some of those kids, they too prideful and egotistical because of the type of money they're getting. And so the hunger and the passion isn't there for them. That hunger and passion is there for that high school kid that's coming in because they want to prove it to auntie, to grandma, and they want you to celebrate them in the stands and for their neighborhood and for their city. It's just a little bit different. So for us, we will always try to go after the high school kids over the portal guys, unless it's an emergency need in that room where we need to bring in 1 or 2 guys that can provide some experience and some veteran leadership. But 9 times out of 10, we're always going to build them from the ground up as freshmen going on through, because I just believe that has to be the backbone of your university. If not, if you're building your program off of portal kids, then it's going to be an every year process where you're doing 1-year contracts. And that's what turns it into a pro job real fast and gets exhausting.
Remind us again what that percentage of recruit you do. I know we talked about it the last time on the show, like you try to do 80-20 for high school versus portal, or the number of kids. Remind us what that is.
Yeah, so for us, it's about 85% right now, just because we also have a new staff transitioning in. So this staff has to get to know our players and fill some holes from the players that just left the portal. We had what, 6? It's crazy. It just happened the other day too. While after Monday, we had a defensive lineman who went to Friendly High School commit to Oregon. So we had 7 guys leave and go FBS. And so those holes we had to fill we had to fill it with portal guys because it's an immediate need. And so our backbone will always be 85 to 90% high school kids. And we'll try to trade in between 10 to 15% portal guys. Like even the second go round, we ended up signing 4 or 5 high school kids and 6 portal guys. And so for us, our backbone will always be high school. We try to, on that first go around and that December signing day, we try to sign mostly high school kids. If we do bring a transfer in mid-year, we might bring in 1 or 2, but the majority will be coming in for that summer just because they only got 1 semester left. So if we bring in 25 kids, about at least 18 to 21 of those kids will be high school kids.
Okay.
Gotcha.
What is your turnover like in your program in terms of like high schoolers and kids transferring out, or maybe even kids failing out?
So that one's even more interesting. The past couple years, we've been lucky. Since 2022, we haven't had any kids fail out. Even the kids that came into us with a low GPA, like we've had student athletes with a 2.4, 2.5 GPA struggle academically, but they never flunked out. They were able to finish through and keep pressing through the academic process. In 20 and 21, however, we had 1 or 2 guys who flunked out. In 17 to 18, we had 1 or 2 guys as well who flunked out and had to go the transfer portal route so they could go to G-code to get their grades back up. But retention is a big part in what we do. And again, that goes back to that first question of what's recruiting for us. Because that character, that student athlete, you know, we always ask one question. Are you hungry or are you starving? And it's like, if you're not a starving player, then sometimes Howard University could be difficult because there's nothing stopping you from going on Georgia Ave. There's nothing stopping you from going on U Street. Like, we don't have no gates. So you have access to whatever you want. And that goes back to that character piece of who we have to recruit. So for the most part, within this past year was the most number because the head coach left. We had, I think, 9 guys going to the portal. 2 of them we got back. 7 of them signed with P4 programs. We didn't have any academic casualties. Everybody who was either struggling academically or had some academic hurdles to get over were just our true freshmen. We had a couple true freshmen who, you know, just didn't do well in the first semester, but we put an academic plan in place for them to be able to be eligible and not have to be suspended in the first few games the next season. But we handle retention very, very well. And I think we were successful in retaining a lot of the players. Like, nobody's really leaving Howard like that. When you come to Howard, you really coming to Howard for 4 to 5 years. And if you don't come to Howard for 4 to 5 years, you're probably leaving after year 2 for a bigger opportunity. And 9 times out of 10, like I said, we had a kid sign with Arizona, Oregon, Arkansas, Auburn, like JMU, Louisiana, Lafayette. Like, we had a couple guys sign at bigger levels, meaning the G5 or the P4 level. And so that's the only reason we really lose kids. We'll really lose a kid to academics just because we have conversations consistently. So the progress reports y'all do in high school, we do the same thing with our kids. We do academic checks on Mondays. Every Monday, a kid meets with their position coach academically to tell them, hey, what are your grades? How are you doing in class? All our kids still go to study hall. They meet with the academic team to go over their grades and get tutors and things of that nature. So we do a really good job fostering that process and that schedule for them, even in the spring, to make sure we can retain those kids grades wise.
Gotcha. All right. So we're gonna move on to the next question here, and I was about to ask a question in between, but I've switched around the questions a little bit just to touch this part. So the next question is, what things can hurt someone during the recruiting process? And while you're answering this, just touch base on the new world of these agents that are, now popping up, and these families are hiring agents now.
Yeah. So, the number one thing I always tell people is like use the coaches that are at the university. Even if you have questions and you're afraid to ask those questions, ask those coaches those questions, just because it's going to be easier coming from that coach than a person that's not attached to the program. So I had 2 walk-ons with agents and have the agents reach out to us saying, I want to build a relationship with you guys and I want to kind of cushion the information load for this family. And I'm just like, yeah, the family should just reach out and talk to us and figure out, hey, what this process is like, what they want, instead of sending someone else. And so 9 times out of 10, the agent process is going to kind of rub us the wrong way, just because none of these agents are certified. Like, these agents could be your roommate, it could be your best friend, it could be your cousin who work at Walmart. Like, it's no certification process for an agent to represent a student athlete. And so for me, it's just like these kids get agents and not realizing that agent can really lose you money. If that agent social media profile isn't representative for a business, they can lose a situation, that you can lose money in that process, because who are you listening to? Who are you influenced by? We had a kid who's hurt go into the portal, and his agent told him to go into the portal. It's just like, yo, bro, like, y'all keep listening to these people instead of listening to people who coach in this profession to tell you, if you're hurt, where are you going to go? Because you can't participate in spring ball for them. So where are you going to end up to prove that you can play? That's one thing. The other thing we talked about earlier was just parental guidance. I had one player I was recruiting. His mom and dad weren't on the same page with where he wanted to go. His mom said, yes, this student athlete wants to go to this university. His father was looking for a P4 offer and a P4 opportunity. So he was trying to curtail his son to be able to go to that P4 school. And it's just like, those things, your family and you not being on the same page with what you want. If that's what you want, cool, that's what you want. But at the end of the day, all parties in this relationship with this student athlete have to be on the same page to say, hey, this is what we want to represent. And so those are a couple of things that can hurt. And then kind of what we talked about earlier, like, you thinking you're too big for this program. If you think you're too big for any program, you're going to rub that program the wrong way, and you're going to push that program to the side to the point where they're not going to want to recruit you. We had a kid who was going on a visit. Unfortunately, he was a local kid. He was going on a visit to a bigger school, and he kind of brushed us off. Said, yeah, don't worry about it. I got a bigger school that's all after me, coach. I thank you for the opportunity. After his visit, he called us back, said, hey, is that opportunity still there? And we just said, no, it's not. Like, we don't want to be second fiddle to anybody. So again, treat people how you want to be treated. Just because there's a bigger opportunity that's going to provide you with bigger resources to you doesn't mean you're still going to treat the next man like a lowly citizen. And those are a couple of the things that can hurt. But the agent piece is the one where, I mean, I was told one of our players were at an evaluation of $300,000. I said, wait a minute. This player isn't an all-conference player. This player did not make all MEAC academic team, not all MEAC football. He wasn't honorable mention All-American, none of that. How was his evaluation $300,000? And come to find out, if the agent got him to sign to a program for $300,000, he was going to take $60,000 from that student. And that's where these agents are coming into play, where they're collecting 20%. Well, the NFL don't collect 20%. Like, and this is where I have a problem with that process, because it's like, I tell people, hey, make sure your agent is really for you and not for the bonus money they're going to get for you signing with the program. Like, just make sure they're for you, they're supporting you, they're giving all the information up front that you need to know, so that they don't put you in a bad situation And don't allow this agent to dictate where you want to go. If they're telling you, hey, I want you to hop into the portal after this season so that you could come get some money, but you're happy at this university, you love this university, you love the staff, why leave? It doesn't make sense. And so these agents right now who aren't certified, they could be a booster, they could be a friend, they could be anybody off the street. If they don't have a track record of dealing with legal issues, if they don't have a track record of dealing with paperwork or representing branding for a player, you got to really, really pay attention to your sources, just because these relationships can be torn in a process with a coach and they might not be repaired. And if they're not repaired, again, you putting yourself in harm's way of a relationship that, you know, can bite you in your butt in the end. And it's just not worth it.
Right.
See,
You mentioned
even
about
the dog's telling you don't hire no agent.
I tell you,
I'm
boy.
just trying to tell you. The dog's trying to ask some questions too.
You mentioned about the kid who kind of discarded you and wanted to go to the bigger schools, right? And then he came back to you. You was like, no, I'm good. But I know there are some kids who you follow and follow and follow, but then you will take them back if they came back after doing their thing. What's the difference in the two scenarios where you're telling this other kid whatever, but then you're taking back somebody who took a long time to come to you guys? Like
the difference of either the two will always be just respect. How you approach this, how you treated us when we reached out. Did you brush us off and just say, you know, nah, I don't want to be there? Or did you say, no, thanks, coach? You know, I found another opportunity. I think I'm going to seek out this opportunity. It's just always the way you treat somebody and make somebody feel through the process. Because that other student athlete, the one who brushed us off, also was supposed to say, he also said, yeah, I'm going to come on campus today. And I was just like, okay, cool. He's going to come on campus today. Awesome. I love to see him, love to talk to him. And then he just didn't show up. And so in that process, it's just a respect level. It's a respect factor. Like, don't waste nobody's time. If you're not interested, just tell them you're not interested right now and give them the reasons why. Somebody has to, again, if they take that personal, they take it personal. But at the end of the day, I'm a person who wears his emotions on his sleeve. I can be sensitive from time to time. I'm always going to respect someone's decision of trying to make the best for them. But just respect this in the process. Because, again, coaches are people too. Coaches have flaws. We have emotions. And so we could take things and be petty in the process, or we could take things as God would and kind of brush it off our shoulder. But it just depends on what type of day that coach is having.
Just being respectful through the process.
I always tell people, be respectful through the process. You being honest and upfront, and then coming back, circling back. That coach might, because of how you handle it, that coach might still be open to you coming into the program. But the one thing I always tell coaches, I said, okay, you got to be careful with guys who bounce from school to school, because you just might be the next stepping stone. And so if you accept that, and you can accept that level of play, and you can accept that talent level that student athlete has to deal with it, cool. But if your infrastructure, if the staff members you have aren't built to handle those type of student athletes, they should not be in your program. Like I tell people all the time, like, football wasn't my only job. I've been a bus driver. I done been a paraprofessional. I done worked in a regional school. I've been a behavior tech, an ISS coordinator. So coming into Howard's program, any student athlete that has any edge to him, has any roughness to him, I'm 9 times out of 10 going to kind of corral myself around them, just because I was that once as a player and as a student, but I've also dealt with that my whole life. And so I just know how to talk to people, and I always treat people like people. Like, I don't care what you did. You're not what you did. That's not who you are. You have to find out who you are in the process. And if you talk to people in that type of way, you'll kind of find out like people are very interested in you as a person. And then if you're representing that program, you make that program look a lot better. And it's some kids we done got that we shouldn't have got. But I always tell people, man, if you treat Miss B, who's the receptionist at Cook Hall, well and respectful, you treat G, who's our office custodian, and you treat Miss Nat, who is the custodian, Bird, our gym. If you treat them respectfully, you should be able to treat everybody respectfully, because it don't take much to respect somebody. And if you always go through this process with respect, you'll end up getting what you want in the long run.
Yeah, I agree with that 100%.
You mentioned evaluations earlier.
All right, midnight.
In terms of evaluations, like, is there a standard? Like, how did this kid come up with this 300,000 as his evaluation?
I have no idea, because the kid told me, not the agent. So, and it was the agent of one of our former players who ended up signing somewhere big. But I don't know how he came up with the evaluation, because he told me this evaluation before he even jumped in the portal. And I was just like, I don't know where you're getting that number from. I know some student athletes were getting that number and a little bit more, but that number for a kid who only played one season, it was tough for me to say, hey, that evaluation was there, just because it's so little opportunities to get paid that much. Like I don't know if you guys remember Brandon Lee from Flowers High School a few years ago. He was an exceptional corner coming out of high school, and he had Alabama, Michigan State, Michigan, Texas. He had all these schools. And I don't even know the number he was getting, but I'm like, they can't be handing out $300,000 all willy-nilly like this. Like, it's kind of impossible. And so the schools that were reaching out to that young man at the time weren't really offering them. And that's what kind of made me think, like, yeah, these agents really are trying to find kids pots and find kids money and find kids a place to go. And the evaluations aren't accurate information. Like, I would love for them for all the agents have to be certified at some point, just because I want these kids to be able to have the correct and accurate information that they need to have. Just because this portal thing is still new, this NIL era is still new to everybody, especially the agent piece. And so I just want everybody to kind of be educated on what an evaluation really is and what NIL really is, because the collective is something different that it's kind of like your background. It ain't got no ending to it. It's open-ended. It's a galaxy. And so people just got to understand, like, these evaluations don't matter. If I get paid $300,000 and I still got to pay taxes, and I got to pay for books, I got to pay for my meals, I got to pay for my apartment, I got to pay for my car and things of this nature, and then I'm not playing, well, what am I getting this money for? You know what I mean? It's like I'm just showing up to work every day, getting paid handsomely, but I'm never going to have the opportunity to play the game I love. I just get to practice. And so I always tell people, don't follow the money, follow the situation. If you follow your situation and you do it the right way, the money will eventually come to you. And if you're lucky enough to be selected, you'll be able to get more money by playing in the NFL. But at the end of the day, these evaluations are open-ended. It's just a number to kind of lure these kids to sign with these agents so that they could then go find this money for them, but it ends up not being the same amount that they gave an evaluation for.
All right, going to the next topic here. So this one here is, can prep schools or JUCOs help? And I think this is an important one, Coach, because especially in the aspect of a school like Howard, where your GPA is very important. So explain how this can help kids out, if it helps.
Oh, it helps tremendously. Like me personally, I invest in going to the prep schools. So it's a bunch of prep schools in Connecticut and Massachusetts is one. Where one of my boys started it here in Maryland. And it's very impactful and important for these kids to go to these prep schools, because what a prep school can end up doing for you is just give you a second chance, a second opportunity without you losing a year. And so by you going to the prep school, you don't lose a year. I always suggest either graduate high school or go after your 11th grade year if you're going to prep school. But at the end of the day, like, these prep schools give you an opportunity to be able to give yourself a second chance at life, give you a second chance at football. Because at these prep schools, most prep schools are boarding options. And so with them being a boarding option, and they're nowhere near what a high school is, and they're nowhere near what your high school setup was, it's going to give you a better foundation. It's going to give you a better structure. It's going to give you a better landscape. And it's already going to be set up and preparing you for what college will be like. You're going to be taking college level courses. You're going to be handling things in a dorm, on a campus. There's some high schools are set up like that. But for the most part, a prep school and a JUCO are going to help you. They have two different deals with them, because a JUCO is a little bit rougher environment, a little bit rougher space, just because you got to fend for yourself, essentially. Most of them are in the Midwest. You got a couple that are on the West Coast, but most of them are in the Midwest, and it's not an easy place to be. You telling a kid from PG County go live out Kansas, yeah, you gotta have a different mentality to go live out in Kansas and fend for yourself and figure it out. But also, I tell people, you got to be careful, because in order to increase your GPA, increase your chances, you got to take classes that might not translate to the college level. So I'm probably more leaning towards the JUCOs, but there are some kids that have a prep year post grad and they want to transfer in credits. And weightlifting is not a credit you transferring in. If you're not transferring into math or science, some general elective, it's not going to transfer in. And so by you taking fundamentals of life, that's not transferring to a major. You know what I mean? Now, you might be able to take foundations of tech, or you might be able to take culinary or something like that might be able to transfer to a university. But 9 times out of 10, some of these programs are set up and built to help these student athletes look better academically on paper, and they're just not taking any classes that are real and that are serious. If you're taking geography, if you're taking psychology, sociology, chemistry, college algebra, these classes will always be relatable to any college that you go to. And so the JUCOs in that regard will help for those that are really taking their academic piece serious to bring it up. And then the prep school, it just puts you in a different environment. You get out of where you're from, where you're around. It puts you around their program, their private structure, their private backing, and it just puts you in a situation where you got to take school serious and you have to take football serious. Because again, some of these prep schools, like, if you've seen any of these Connecticut prep schools, man, they have some facilities. Like, they are doing very well. And some of those late bloomers you talked about earlier, they have to go to these prep schools because they need that year. They need that extra year, because one of these, I know a couple of the prep schools up in Connecticut, they'll actually take you as a prep and you can reclass. So not only can you take that prep year, you can also take your senior year over at this prep school, so you can build your body, build your mind, and get that structure that you really needed, so that you could be recruited for the better athlete that you are. Like, it's a couple kids that I saw at a couple prep schools, and I mean, they look like grown men. And the coach told me, he was like, yeah, he'll be a 20-year-old freshman going into college. And it's just because he took that time to take that extra year, take that extra 2 years to really develop who he is as a person, as a man, because his family structure wasn't set up to be that. And to give that young man a chance, he had to go to a prep school and invest in a prep school, and it kind of helped him out. So that military school that we went to when we was kids, for the kids that got in trouble in the neighborhood and all that, that's what these schools are, but they're really setting you up for a better future and a better promise. And a lot of these kids who are in major colleges and are successful academically have ended up going through a prep school. I do not encourage anybody to go to a prep school during the year, but either do it before your season or wait till after your season if that's the route you want to take, just because prep schools play each other. They also play some Division III colleges. They also play some NAIA schools. So in the process, you're not only just playing kids that are your age, you're really getting prepared for that college lifestyle of what you're going to go through on the field and in the classroom. And so they can help. They are useful. I will always say, do your research. Do your research. No different than the colleges. Find out where these kids went to school at after they left the prep school, and how many of them went to college to play that sport from that prep school. And then you'll kind of get a better judge of, if this prep school is an option, is it for you? Because no different than a transfer portal right now. Some kids do get stuck going to these prep schools and never making it out to go to a college. And it is what it is. It just doesn't turn out the right way. Now, I wouldn't say it doesn't turn out the right way from a personal standpoint or an academic standpoint, but that athletic piece sometimes kind of just gets thrown to the side.
Right. So in terms of JUCO versus prep school versus reclass in high school, what's your comments for those guys? Like which one is the better route, or if any?
I don't think there's such thing as a better. I think it's a case by case situation. Like I have a college freshman who's going to turn 20 years old because he reclassed in high school. But he felt like he had the need to reclass in high school because he broke his leg his 11th grade year, and he spent his whole year out, and he missed the year. And so for him to get that opportunity back, he wanted to reclass. And again, it's a case by case scenario situation. I haven't been to too many JUCOs. I have been to a couple. I've been to quite a few prep schools, so I always tell kids, if you can do the prep option, because we're always going to recruit prep schools just because they give our kids a better start, a better fight, and a better chance. And then they throw so many showcases. And I know our area is about to throw more showcases coming up here soon in the spring to kind of highlight the kind of kids we have in the area. But they do so many showcases. They do a round robin showcase where you could go to 12 schools in one day and see all of their kids perform. And it's just like they put on great events for coaches to kind of see who they have, what they're about, and what their style of play is, that they give them a chance and they give them a shot. Some schools, unfortunately, some schools where you're not winning too many games and you're just not interested in the product they put out just because most coaches want winners. And it's just tough to get recruited when your team isn't winning any football games. And so I always tell people, get better, develop and improve, but at the same time, you got to find what you want, whether it's to walk onto a program or do you need an extra year or two. Like I've had people fail English on purpose because they knew they weren't going to graduate so that they can spend an extra year in high school. And it's just like, nah, man, don't do that. Always go to a JUCO, always go to a prep school, always go to a military school to kind of find that discipline and structure you need instead of staying another year in high school where you 19 years old where everybody else is 16 to 17. That ain't right. That ain't going that's not going to help your situation. But just using these other options are an avenue that you can take, and to me it's always beneficial.
Do you think there's a benefit to a kid reclassing and using that as an option with their eligibility?
I do if it's granted and warranted. I'm always a guy I'm not a rules guy. I'm also not a tradition guy. Like I can't stand tradition. Because the tradition always screams out, hey, we've always done this, so let's continue to do this. I think we do need to change with the times with certain traditions. But like I said, on a case-by-case basis, I do think that some kids do need another opportunity, another shot, another moment, another season to prove that they can do what they can do. I just always say, hey, if it's good for that conference, it's good for me. And so I've recruited kids who've reclassed before. All I cared about was the character of that student athlete and the athletic ability. Because if the character of that student athlete matched it to athletic ability, we have something and I can develop you into the person that you need to be. You don't have to be a ready-made project for me. I just need to be able to develop you. And if you need another year and you have that option, take that option. If you're not getting the offers you want, now that's a whole different ballgame. No, you cheating the system. Like, and you're gonna end up losing that way because once you reclass after you got 12 to 15 offers, you're telling those 12 to 15 schools, no, we're not interested. We want something bigger and something better. And then it goes to that respect piece. Because then, hey, if you don't get what you want, are you gonna come back around? Yeah, I'm not taking you. Like, that's not gonna happen. We're gonna move on with a kid that respects the process the right way and treats the process the right way.
Right. And wants to be at your school.
Yes, 100%.
Yeah. All right. I don't know if we had any questions in the chat.
That's a conversation I had with a lot of middle school kids who. Nope, I don't see any in there.
Okay.
Next question, Coach. Okay. How can a high school player develop skills that coaches wants to see?
Oh, this is a good one. Transitional drills. Drills have to translate to what we play. And so I know last time I spoke about guys having tight hips. Some people have tight hips because they don't do track no more. They don't play flag football. They don't play basketball. They don't wrestle. We always are going to love multiple sport athletes. And so if a student athlete could play multiple sports, the better, because those skills from basketball to football to track, football to wrestling, football to baseball, they're always going to translate because they're very similar movements. But in training, I always tell kids, don't train stand still. Like that's not going to help you. Like football is not a standstill sport. Like you have to understand, like, I got to sprint one way and change direction and go the other way. Sometimes I need to flip my hips in order to do that. Sometimes I need to turn my body. All right, when I run sideways and run laterally, sometimes I need to keep my shoulders square. So that's where that hip flexibility comes into play. And it's like those transitional drills, if more guys understood, I need to transition from one direction to the other direction without losing speed, that's what's going to be able to get me to that next level that I need to get to. So those transitional drills will always help. Understanding, like, speed to power. Like, how can I go real fast into a person and project power into them, right? That's the name of our game. It always has been. I tell people, when I was playing, those conversations started happening about the bench press. I'm not bench pressing nobody on the football field. That's wasted energy. That's wasted movement. So 9 times out of 10, when you're talking about block destruction, I'm trying to get fully extended already. That's not a bench press. A bench press, I need to get into you and extend, but I don't have to do that for every position. So that piece is always going to be position specific. Any offense or defense alignment, you're going to have to do that. So you need to make sure you're strong in that area. But for any big skill like a linebacker or a tight end, I'm not doing that. That's just not the nature of our game right now. Like, if anybody saw that game last night, they didn't see too many people benching people. But when it comes down to making a tackle, when it comes down to blocking somebody, You saw somebody squat underneath somebody. You saw somebody getting leverage up underneath somebody. You saw somebody extend their arms and project power into them. That's cleans, that's snatches, that's deadlifts. It's all Olympic lifts. So I always tell people, weight room is going to be your best friend. Not in the sense of doing these stiff movements where it's very stationary. You have to do athletic movements to be an athlete. And so you got to do transition drills. I will always tell people, get with a track coach. A track coach is going to help you stretch. It's going to help you flex your muscles. It's going to help you be a little bit nimble and quick. And then just train as an athlete for your position. If you have to be up front and be a lineman, yeah, you're going to have to use your hands and be a little bit more physical, but it's always a game of change of direction. You have to move in multiple directions. And again, if anybody saw that game last night, they saw a lot of people running into people, but moving in directions. Like when Seven caught that fumble off of the quarterback's hand, picked it up and ran up the sideline, that was a defensive lineman. That was not a linebacker or a DB. And so even those guys have to learn how to run, how to move, how to maneuver around people in order to be successful in this game.
That was one lineman running it in and the other one chasing him down. It was kind of
Yes, 100%.
And he was trying to catch him. He really was trying to.
Yeah. One of them was Morgan Moses. Morgan Moses is from the area. He played at UVA. He's been playing for 12, 14 years in the NFL. So,
former Redskin.
Yeah, you know what I mean? So, you know, it's still a game of movement. Like you have to be able to move your body in an appropriate way without losing that speed. And this is why I tell people, like, if I didn't run track in high school, I probably wouldn't have played college football. Just because my first track practice, we stretched for 45 minutes. And I was like, what is this? But I got to understand how you take care of your body. Like, how do you move your body? And in college, I really only had 2 injuries. And they were very insignificant injuries because I was taught how to train and take care of my body. And in that process, they always say it, every coach has said it, your best ability is availability. And so I was always there. If somebody else was hurt, hey, Gould here. Yep, he is. Hey, can you play this, Gould? Yes, I can. Show me. No problem. Like, and I was always in position to be that next man up, whether it was on special teams, whether it was on defense. Hey, Gould, can you play Sam linebacker? Yeah, let me just teach me what you need me to do, and I got you. Hey, can you play middle? Absolutely. And can you play no matter what the position was, I was always trying to see, all right, cool, let me see if I can do that. And I just stayed consistent working. Like, no different than I work at football now. I did it back then. And so, again, they have to develop in transition drills and just always working. Like, it don't take you much. Well, right now it takes much because it's ice capades outside, but you can find an indoor gym. Like I show people, I'm doing a clinic, the DMV high school clinic coming up on the 28th, and I'm talking about linebacker play, and I'm going to talk about how easy it is to be a really good linebacker. I'm a very unconventional coach. You're not going to meet another one like me. And it's because of my background. But I've stolen thoughts and ideas from different positions where an offensive lineman use med balls to improve the positions of their players from a blocking standpoint. Well, linebackers use a 6-point explosion. They always do the 6-point explosion to go into a bag, and then coaches always yell at their players for not getting full extension, for not getting out. Well, I decided to use a med ball. If I use that med ball in that same fashion of that 6-point explosion, that med ball is going to make you lock out your arms. And it takes me back to basketball. When I do a chest pass or a bounce pass, I have to get full extension. I have to. And then from that point, it's about the different positions I've coached. I coached tight ends for a couple years. Well, I found out from a tight end position to keep my thumbs up, I just squeeze my elbows. I can't squeeze my elbows together and my thumbs go down. It's impossible. I got to flare them out. And so just paying attention to those little subtle details about the position, that's going to always help me be better of just how naturally my body moves. Like when I do squats, like in my stance when I played, I couldn't do my knees inside or my feet pigeon toe like everybody else because I have external rotation of my knees. And so when I squat, my knees go out as wide as they need to, and I can squat as much as anybody else. But I had to know how my body operated and how my body moved. And when I figured that out, I was able to be a successful player.
So talking about, preparing your body and developing it, how much time do you guys take during the week, during the season to recover after a game and plus to get ready for the week, getting your body ready for the week?
That's a good one. That one's kind of layered too. So one of the things we do, our coach calls be a pro. So our defensive coordinator, Kashawn Jarrett, calls it be a pro, where right now what we do is we stretch, we get in static positions, kinetic positions, and we do core. Because core stability is going to be able to be the backbone of kind of your strength palette. If you have a weak core, there's not a whole bunch of strength movements you're going to be able to do, and it helps you in recovery. And so we just do everything on the front end. We're not reactionary. We're always proactive. And so being a pro is just about taking care of your body. So if we got to work out at 6 o'clock in the morning, we're getting up at 5:15, 5:30 to get together so that we can make sure these kids' bodies are ready to perform. Because at the end of the day, our bodies are not a microwave, it's an oven. And so you got to warm it up. You got to treat it right. And that's what allows us to be sustained during the season. And so just that natural habit of treating your body right before you got to go work out, we train them starting in January so that during the season, after a game on that Sunday, they'll technically have off, but those guys will still lift or do a yoga session. Which is just stretching, core, and calisthenics, what we already do as be a pro. But then they also have that Monday off. But we tell our kids to get in the cold tub. We tell our kids, hey, go to treatment to get massages, to get cupping, to get anything that you might need. Like, shoot, I got a foam roller and a massager at the house. Like, so I believe in it so much just because I still lift. I still work out, I still run and things of that nature. And so we just try to teach the kids on how to take care of your body. The most important piece is sleep. So 9 times out of 10, we've created our kids' schedule for the semester already. We built in sleep, we built in rest, we built in naps, we built in snacks, meals on top of their classes. And so we just teach them how to take care of their body and what to do so that now when you do get a bruise, a nick, a scrape, a bump, you already know how to take care of it. And your body it's a machine, so it's going to work itself out. But if your body's in prime condition, that healing process is going to go faster, especially once you incorporate that rest. But we just try to teach the kids how to take care of their body, and that be a pro session that we always do, starting the off season, starting now, helps them and allows them to sustain their body during the season.
Gotcha. And I'm a little late on my next break. So real quick, we're just going to take another break and then we'll be right back with you. All right, we're getting close to the end of our conversation here, but so we talked about, what college coaches are looking for. We talked about some of the do's and don'ts in recruiting. Talked about prep schools and JUCOs, the difference between the two. We talked about what college coaches are looking for in their recruits. So, and we spent some time talking about the portal and things last week and this week. So now you got the player on campus. They're part of your program. And now they're getting upset because they're not seeing the field. And then that's why we got thousands of players in the transfer portals, because they're not getting playing time, or they're not getting the money they think they're supposed to be getting. They're not feeling loved, I should say. So, all right, if they're not seeing the field early, what's something that players can do to change that?
Special teams. Special teams. So this is one for a high school kid, a college kid, a JUCO kid, a prep kid. It doesn't matter. For us, like I started, Mike linebacker was our personal protector. He was our right wing on field goal. He would run down on kickoff. He wasn't good at it, but he would also be down on kickoff return. And I mean, he was our leader. He was our general. He ran the defense. And so I want my starting players have to be on 2 special teams. I don't care if they're the 1 or the 2. It doesn't matter. They have to be on 2 special teams. Because, again, for my position, most special teams are defensive by nature. And so if most special teams are defensive by nature, you have to be on at least 2 of them. And if I'm going to travel 6 guys from out of my room to come on the bus, you have to cover those bases of those special teams positions. So for me, I always tell guys like the 4 freshmen I had, all 4 of them started on at least 2 special teams. And so for them to get that early bump, for them to get that early playing time, they have to do special teams, right? And it took me a while as a coach to figure this part out, but the punt team is nothing just an offensive formation, and you're protecting the quarterback who's the punter. Mm-hmm. Like it's no different, right? Kickoff and punt return, I mean, they're very similar by nature, but it's kickoff. I'm working defense. It's an A gap, it's a B gap. It's like there are gaps in the kickoff. Punt return, I'm trying to go block for this return. It's no different than the running back getting the ball or receiver getting a screen. So once we related that information to the kids in that way where you're able to do those things, but then selfishly, I tell my linebackers, I say, hey, you want average double digits in tackles, you know you can get 4 tackles on special teams.
Yes, you can. Or more.
Like it's easy. Like so, and when I say like I'm a different type of coach, so ever since my Bowie State days, I've broken down what it takes to get double-digit tackles in the game. And I told them, I said, if you get 14 to 17 series in a game and you're playing 30 plays in a game, but you're in for 14 series, just get a tackle a series. Okay, a tackle a series. If you don't have a tackle a series, what about special teams? You're playing on 3 or 4 special teams, then you're going to have an opportunity to get a tackle on punt or kickoff. And so I tell people special teams to kind of cover your bases when it comes down to stat packing. But at the end of the day, like if you want to play efficient defensive football, if you want to play efficient team football, special teams has to be that third, because you can still lose the game by playing offense and defense very well and losing in the special teams. Everybody saw that Pittsburgh Steelers versus Ravens game at the end of the year where you knew the Ravens had it locked up, but then defense gave up a field goal at the end of the game and the Steelers won. And that was so that whole drive, that whole effort that Lamar and Likely and all those guys and Flowers put in, it was for nothing because the defense allowed the field goal kicker at that last second to win the game for the Pittsburgh Steelers, and they won the game. And so we always tell people, if you want to take care of the ball, if you want to take care of the score, go to special teams. Within the past 2 years, Howard's special teams, they blocked at least, I think it was like 6 field goals. When we went to go play FAMU, first game of the season down the Orange Blossom Classic down in Florida in Miami Stadium, we won 10-9. They did not score 1 touchdown in the game, and we blocked 2 field goals. And then our offense, we got the ball back for our offense off of a blocked field goal. At the end of the game, they drove down the field and they kicked a 48-yard field goal to win the game. And it's just like, no, that's a component. That's a major component of how to win football games is special teams.
Mhm.
We lost the game to Hampton a couple years ago because our long snapper muffed the snap and went over the punter's head. Hampton picks up the ball, ends up
score
plays later, and then talking about we were up 35-14. We was up 34-14. We lost 35-14. And I mean 35-34. And so just that ball rolling of a special teams unit and a defensive unit getting going, it can also propel the offense. But if an offense and defensive unit are playing well, but special teams aren't, it can also lose you a game as well. You know what I mean? And so I always tell guys, find your way on special teams. If you're not starting on offense or defense, you better be a four-phase special teams guy. That's punt return, kickoff return. If you have the ability to be on field goal, cool. But 9 times out of 10, you either got to be really, really big, like an offense or defensive lineman, or if you're a wing, you got to be long on the edge to create a longer edge. But special teams is the way to go. That special team coach is going to talk to everybody on the team, from the quarterbacks down to the running backs, the linebackers, linemen. And he can also help you get on the bus offensive, defensively. Because if you're a 1 or 2 on special teams, you got to travel. You got to go. You have to be ready to get. I have to get you ready because you're on special teams. I can't say, oh, my starter has to be ready to go into the game, but he's not on any special teams. That means we got to carry somebody else who's just on special teams that doesn't play defense. And we're not doing that. So everybody has to play special teams. It's a must, but if they're not seeing the field early, they got to invest their time in the special teams.
Good stuff. That's what I tell my players too. Like, you can make it with the special teams. So get a nice kicker, and you're good too. So
it's a long look.
And
if anybody's hearing me, please learn how to long snap.
Long snap.
They are paying big bucks. A long snapper in the NFL is base salary is $400,000. All they're doing is long snapping.
Let me go talk to my old long snapper. He's getting ready to graduate. He did a pretty good job. Yeah,
they don't have to hit nobody for real. They have long careers. It's great benefits being a long snapper. We're looking for one now. So just trust me. If anybody's listening, please teach your children how to long snap. The size really don't matter. We've had a 5'8" long snapper. We've had a 6'5" long snapper. The long snapper does not matter. Can they get the ball back there? That's the most important piece. If they can get the ball back there in the same spot consistently, then they have a chance to get their college education paid for, or at least partial of it paid for.
Well, Coach Gould, you just opened up that door. I'm gonna send you these two huddle highlights you can take a peek at them.
Please do, because we need them like right now. Like our last long snapper is coaching with us right now, so we need another one.
Can I go off script? You mentioned Kai Sean. I guess he's the new coach, right, at Howard?
Yeah, he was he's not new, but he was our DB coach since 2022. He was our new defensive coordinator last year.
Okay, so talk about, if you can, the transition in staffs when you go from one coach to another. I guess that
you're trying to get me fired.
You can say skip, Coach. You can say skip.
No, I don't skip nothing. I don't back down from nothing. It's a tough transition and tough process, just because naturally as a person, you feel like you still got to interview for your job because this new person is in charge and you really don't know this new person. And so through that process, you still got to be on top of your game. You still got to have your P's and Q's in order. But then if you were successful at your job, you gotta tone down a bit. And so those are some things I personally have had to do, because I know I'm good at my job. I've been successful with everything I've touched in this coaching landscape. But with Coach White becoming a new head coach, and he knows of me through some relationships that he has, but he doesn't know what I bring to the table because he hasn't really seen it up close. And so that transition of I've proven myself and I've shown what I can do, but now I got to show this new guy who I am and what I'm about. You kind of got to be built for that process. Coach KJ and I, with Coach Calset, were lucky enough to be three guys to be retained from the last staff. And so it's a beautiful process, but we're trying to lean on each other to help each other through this process too, because it's like, hey man, we're gonna be all right, we're gonna be fine. Like this is what we're gonna do, this is how we're gonna do it. And then we kind of talking each other off the ledge too, because it's like, you know, coach brought in some guys that he believes in and he trusts, and we have to learn who he is through this process, and we have to go through this process in a very new way, almost like we're all coming together all at once at the last minute. You know what I mean? Through recruiting, through training, through developing. And so it's a process that you kind of got to go through. And you gotta stay humble through that process. Otherwise, you'll allow that process to eat you up a little bit and turn you into something that you shouldn't be. And you know, as a man, I always tell people, hey, look, as a man, as a grown man, I got to check my own insecurities. I have them. I have to check my own insecurities in this process because the man upstairs tells me who I am, not this situation. And so I always got to lean on the man upstairs. He put me here for a reason. He's kept me here for a reason. So I got to lean on that and trust him and know he's going to take care of me through the process.
Thanks, Coach.
Mm-hmm.
All right, Coach. Well, we appreciate that, man, and you taking your time today, man. But before I let you get out of here, you know, just let us know what you got going on and how we're coming up soon. I know you guys should have a junior day and spring football, so just put that information out there for everybody.
Yep. So spring football dates. Just follow me on social media at X. I still call it Twitter. I don't know why, but follow me on X at Coach Nick Gould. Those spring dates will be coming out. They will be open practices to local guys. Anybody out of state that wants to come to a practice, all they need to do is just hit me up on X at Coach Nick Gould. Name is on the screen. It's exactly my name, so it's not hard to find. Our junior day will be April the 11th, I believe. Yeah, April the 11th. It's going to be a Saturday. Excuse me. It's going to be fast approaching. We will be doing a coaches clinic at Howard University April the 4th. So look out for those details coming out. And then also coming up in a couple weeks, man, February 28th, I will be speaking at the DMV coaches clinic for all high school and college guys who like to learn a little bit of linebacker play for myself and how I get my guys to play to the level they are, man. But yeah, everything I'm live on social media on a consistent basis. So please follow me for any updates. If you do need to reach out to me, please hit me up. Please follow me. I promise you I'll follow back. If I don't follow back right away, give me a day or two because it's still open recruiting season. So people flooding in my handles right now. But yeah, man, I'm excited about spring ball. I can't wait. We started really talking about like the nook and cranny of installs like this week. So I'm kind of starting to get excited about getting back to coaching some ball and coaching some players.
Good stuff. Yeah, we're supposed to be going to that coaches clinic, so we'll see you there.
I love it. I love it.
Midnight, you got anything else for Coach before we go? We let him get on out of here.
Nah, because he gave me his Twitter handle, so now if he see a message, he'll know it's me. We good to go.
All right, Coach, man. And again, man, we appreciate you taking the time out, man, to share this information. You know, this is stuff that the parents and players, especially in this area, need to hear. There's a lot of misconceptions that these kids are getting out here about recruiting and where they can play and who they can play with and what's needed to play. So I appreciate you taking the time to come through here and just share that information with us.
Absolutely. Anytime.
All right. Anybody got anything they want to close out with? Natalie, you
Nope.
good?
I'm good. Thank you, Coach.
You're welcome. Thank you, guys.
Midnight,
right,
as we always close out, you want to share what we got coming up this week?
Yep. So this week, tomorrow, 6:30, Unapologetic Sports. Tomorrow night, 7:45 drive time. At Wednesday at 7:30, we've got oh man. Nothing but net at 7:30. 8:00 we have our interview show called In the Passenger Seat. At Thursday, 7:10, we have the Thursday Night Throwdown. On Saturday morning, we have at 11 a.m. the Gridiron. And then after that, we have the WrestleManiacs at 9 p.m. And that's our schedule for the week. But the first thing we got to get out of the way is tomorrow morning, 9 o'clock, the audio version of the show will be available. So we have the platforms at the bottom. You can just click in, just like you do any podcast you want, and you can listen to this again. So you can take this with you. It's not just stuck to just here today and right now. And then also, of course, on YouTube, we have the Sideline Junkies page, and we also have a 24/7, which is called Upon Further Review, where you get to watch back shows from the past week. So that's what we got going on.
All right. Well, I appreciate that, Midnight Rider. And Coach, again, thank you for taking time to join us tonight. Appreciate everybody for listening in to the Pretenders and Contenders Coaches Show. Coach Devon checking out. Thank my co-host, Midnight Rider, and Coach Natalie. And again, a special shout out to Coach Nick Gould for spending 2 weeks in a row with us in our platform. Everybody stay warm out there. I hope you all have a good week, and we'll catch you again next week.